Hey folks, so Tim here. In this video I'm going to show you how you can connect to an external Excel workbook that contains some messy data, and then we'll transform that data using Power Query to get a nice clean table. So in the example I'm going to run you through, I'm actually going to connect to one of the zero profit and loss reports that I've already downloaded in Excel, and that contains a column for our account names, 12 columns for our months in the year, and then a total column. And we're going to transform that so we just end up with one column for our account names, one column for the dates, and then one column for the amounts. So let's jump on my computer and get on with it. So in Excel, and you can do this, start off with any blank workbook, go to the data section of the ribbon, and then go to get data from file, and then click from workbook. And then just select the workbook that you want to connect to. So in my case it is this one, and then just click import. And then in this navigator window that's appeared, we just want to select the worksheet within the workbook that we want to load and transform. So in my case, it's just got one worksheet, which is this profit and loss. So I'm just going to click on that and click transform data. And we can see that's now loaded the Power Query editor with our table of, or our worksheet of information or data into the editor that we can transform. So you can see we've got a column that contains all of the account names, and then we've got a column for the 12 months in the year. So we've got July 21 all the way to August 20, and then one for total, and then a blank column. So first thing we want to do is remove these first three rows which have got null values in, because we need to use row 4 as our column headers. So if you go to the home section of the ribbon and under reduce rows, go remove rows and then remove top rows. And in the dialog box that appears, we just need to put the number in of the rows that we want to remove. So in my case it's 3, so just put in the number 3 and click OK. And then we want to just push up row number 1 to our column headers. So still on the home section of Power Query's ribbon, go under transform and then go to use first row as headers. And you can see that's pushed our dates into the column headers. Next thing I want to do is remove anything from column 1 that I don't want. So in my case, I've got nulls, I've got total income, total cost of sales, gross profit, less operating expenses, operating profit, non-operating income. I don't want any of those items in there. So I'm just going to click on the down arrow in column 1 and then just untick the items that I don't want to see. So I don't want that, I don't want those, I don't want those, and I don't want these down here. So obviously it would completely depend on the data that you're loading, what you want to keep in and what you want to remove. However, it is important, if you undertake these transformations on a worksheet that contains this information and then you load a worksheet in that doesn't contain the information, it will cause Power Query to create an error, and then the rest of your steps of transformations after what you're doing here, so taking items out to filter, they won't work. So when you apply these steps and these transformations, you need to make sure that all the data that you're loading in after doing this is always consistent. So I'm just going to click OK, and then you can see that's removed all of those rows and we've got a cleaner looking data set now. So the next thing I want to do is remove the columns that I don't want, and in order to do that, similar to how I showed you in the last video, I'm going to select the columns that I do want. So in this case I want column 1, which is our account names, and I want up to column that's August 20. So I'm just going to hold the shift button down on my keyboard and then click on that August column, and it's selected all those columns which I want to keep. And then if you just go to one of the header sections that you've selected, you can see it goes dark green. Just right click and then go remove other columns. And you can see I've just now got our columns that have amounts in and account names. So now I need to unpivot the columns that include our amounts. So if I click on the July column and then scroll right to the end, hold shift on my keyboard and click the August column, that's selected all those columns apart from the account name column. That's important, don't select that here. And now I'm going to go to the transform section of Power Query's ribbon, and under any column go unpivot columns, and you can see that's now loaded, or it's now shifted all of our columns that contain dates and numbers just into 2 columns. And what it's also done is it's duplicated all of our account names for each of those items. Next thing I want to do is remove the zero values because they're just unneeded. They're going to be a waste for when I load this to a table later on. I don't need to see that. It's just going to make the data bigger and bigger, and it's just unnecessary. So I'm just going to click on the filter button again in the value column and then untick 0 like so. And then I think I just want to rename some of these column headers, so I'm just going to double click on the column header that's named column 1, and I'm going to name this account name, hit enter, and then attribute, I'm going to name that date and hit enter, and then we'll leave value as value because that kind of makes sense. And that's really it for this. So that's our nice clean table of data. I now want to just load this to an Excel table that we can then use in either a pivot table, or you could just use it, you know, as part of another report that you've perhaps got. So if you've got a big management report pack and you want to use this data to just literally create your profit and loss report within that management report pack, you can then easily do a sum if on this table. So if I go to the home section of Power Query's editor and then go close and load to, that's going to bring the options up where we want to close and load to, funnily enough. And by default it's going to select table, and that's absolutely fine for this. And then, yeah, like I said, so if you had a profit and loss report where you had all your account names, which are obviously here in a profit and loss, you could just do a sum if where you've got account name as a criteria and date as a criteria. Or you could just create a pivot table from here. So if you just selected on the table, you can use the keyboard shortcut to do this. So if you hold down the Alt key and then hit NV on your keyboard, that's going to bring up the insert pivot table section, and you can just click from table range and then click OK, and that's brought up the pivot table dialog box for us. So if I just put account name in rows and value in values, and then perhaps I want to put a filter on that. So if under the pivot table analyze, if I click insert slicer and then click account name like so, that's going to allow me to just filter that pivot table. Obviously in my case it's a very small data set, so you can see it pretty easy, but if you're doing this on a really big data set where you've got loads of different items in, maybe different products and services and stuff, you can use a slicer to filter that pivot table by. So that's it for this video. Hope you guys found this useful, and I'll see you in the next one. Thanks very much.